You want to know the truth? The most dangerous person in any room is the one who doesn't need anyone. I don't mean someone who hates people. I mean someone who chooses to be whole on their own. That person is unshakable. That person knows exactly who they are when the lights go out, the applause stops, and the phone's not ringing. You want to win at life? You've got to make yourself strong enough to survive alone. Nobody talks about this, but being alone, really alone, that's where all your power is hiding. You don't grow when you're constantly surrounded by people telling you what you want to hear. You grow when you're sitting by yourself, wrestling with your doubt, your fear, your silence, and coming out stronger. You grow when you choose not to text your ex, when you stop begging for people to stay, when you realize you don't need anyone to complete you. Being emotionally self-reliant, that's not just some self-help fluff. That's neuroscience. When you learn how to calm your own nervous system, regulate your anxiety, and process pain without running from it, you become a force. You become someone who doesn't fall apart when the world lets them down. Because here's a truth nobody tells you: the world will let you down. Over and over again, people will disappoint you. But you've got to be the one who never abandons yourself. You've got to build a life you can love alone. Learn to cook for yourself. Learn to fix your mindset. Learn to sit at a restaurant table by yourself and not feel weird. Learn to make decisions without calling 5 people for approval. You've got to stop outsourcing your confidence to the opinions of others. Because confidence is earned through action, through doing hard things, through standing back up every time you fall. You want to know how to get there? It's not glamorous. It's not easy. It's choosing discomfort again and again. Because the more uncomfortable you're willing to get, the stronger you become. You build courage by taking the solo path, by investing in your skills, your habits, your mind. You build inner peace by saying no when your body is screaming yes out of fear. You build freedom by letting go of people who only want access, not intimacy, not growth, not truth. Set boundaries, not walls. Boundaries. Know the difference. Boundaries say, I love you, but I love me too. They protect your energy. They train people how to treat you. And let me be crystal clear. No one will respect your boundaries if you don't. Stop explaining. Stop apologizing. Start enforcing. And then, the real magic. You start falling in love with your own company. That's the moment you reclaim your time, your power, your choices. You stop tolerating fake friendships, toxic partners, and meaningless distractions. You become a magnet for peace, because people can feel when you're grounded, when you're good with or without them. That kind of energy, unstoppable. So today, stop waiting for someone to save you. Stop hoping for someone to notice your worth, because you were built to survive, to thrive, and to stand tall, even when you're standing alone. You know what's really underrated in this world? The ability to be alone and not feel lonely. That right there is a skill, a mindset, a muscle that most people never develop. And it's the one that can change your life. Because let's face it, relying on someone else to validate you, rescue you, or make you feel complete is the fastest road to disappointment. You've got to get to a place in your life where you are strong enough, mentally, emotionally, physically, to survive alone. Not just survive, thrive. Because the moment you realize you don't need anyone to keep going is the moment you become unstoppable. Most people avoid being alone. Why? Because it forces them to face themselves, to sit in silence with the parts they've been running from. But here's the truth. No one tells you. Those moments, those quiet, uncomfortable, raw moments, that's where growth begins. That's where you get to rewrite the story. When you sit with your pain and when you accept the heartbreak instead of covering it up with distractions, when you face the silence instead of fearing it, you start to build strength from the inside out. That strength isn't loud. It's not about being aggressive or putting up a front. It's calm, steady, grounded. It shows up in how you talk to yourself, in how you treat yourself, in how you stop begging people to stay. It's choosing peace over chaos, boundaries over people-pleasing, self-respect over approval. You stop needing someone else to remind you of your value because you see it yourself every single day in the way you show up, even when no one is watching. And let me tell you, learning to be alone doesn't mean isolating yourself or cutting everyone off. It means being able to stand on your own 2 feet emotionally. It means knowing that your happiness doesn't depend on someone else's behavior, that your confidence doesn't shatter when someone doesn't text back, that your plans don't fall apart when people disappoint you, because they will. People will leave. They'll change. Life will shift. And if your sense of self is built around others, you'll fall apart every time someone else does. So how do you build this kind of strength? You stop waiting. You stop waiting for perfect timing, for someone to save you, for things to feel easy. You start doing the work. You commit to becoming your own home, your own anchor, your own support system. You learn the skills you've been avoiding. You get comfortable eating alone, working on your goals alone, going to therapy alone. You stop filling your schedule with noise just to avoid being with yourself. You start asking the hard questions. Who am I without the people around me? What do I actually want? What am I pretending not to know? The answers don't come all at once, but the clarity starts showing up when you do the hard stuff, when you choose discipline over comfort, when you pick self-respect over temporary connection, when you trust that being alone is not a punishment, it's preparation. Preparation for the future version of you who doesn't chase, who doesn't fear solitude because they've turned solitude into strength. There is something powerful about a person who doesn't flinch when plans fall through, who doesn't crumble when they get rejected, who can walk away from chaos without looking back. That kind of person is dangerous in the best way because they can't be manipulated. They attract it. They don't follow trends. They lead themselves. They don't fear loss because they've already found themselves. So don't run from being alone. Lean into it. Use it. Let it shape you. Because if you can learn to enjoy your own company, if you can thrive without constant validation, if you can choose your peace over people's opinions, you become free, not just from others, but from fear, from neediness, from insecurity. That freedom, that's the goal. That's what strength looks like. And it all starts with the decision to stop running and start standing tall, even if it's just you standing there. There comes a point in life where you're waiting for someone to come along and give you permission to live fully. You've got to stop hoping that someone else will see your worth, recognize your potential, or validate your emotions. The truth is, no one's coming. And once you accept that, you reclaim your power, because the person you've been waiting for is already here. It's you. And it's time to become strong enough to stand alone, not because you want to be alone forever, but because you no longer fear it, because you've built the kind of strength that isn't dependent on anyone else showing up for you. Most people tie their happiness to someone else's presence. But happiness that depends on another person isn't happiness. It's dependency. And dependency keeps you stuck. It keeps you scared. It keeps you small. The real work, the real growth, begins when you start asking yourself how much of your life is being driven by the fear of being alone. How many decisions are rooted in the need to be liked, loved, chosen? How many times have you said yes when you meant no just to keep someone close? That's not love. That's survival. And you deserve more than just surviving. You were meant to thrive. When you're constantly surrounded by people, you don't get the chance to hear your own voice. You don't get the space to figure out what you believe, what you want, what you stand for. Being alone isn't a weakness. It's a training ground. It's where you develop emotional stamina, where you learn how to calm yourself down, how to encourage yourself, how to stay grounded when things fall apart. It's where you build the internal tools that no one can take from you. Tools like resilience, emotional regulation, clarity, and confidence. Strength isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the quiet moments. The ones where no one's watching. The ones where you could easily choose to give up, but you don't. The moments where you're tempted to call someone who hurt you just because the silence feels too loud. And instead, you sit with it and you let it teach you. You let it shape you. You let it make you better. That's strength. That's real power. And the truth is, the longer you fear being alone, the more likely you are to compromise. You'll settle for relationships that drain you, jobs that devalue you, friends who use you, just to avoid being by yourself. But the minute you start valuing your peace over proximity, everything changes. You start attracting better, because you know you're okay on your own, and anything or anyone that comes into your life is just adding to your already full plate, not filling a void. Learning to be alone is one of the most important things you'll ever do for yourself. It teaches you to stop looking outward and start looking inward. You stop blaming others for your unhappiness and start taking ownership of your healing. You stop needing closure from other people and start giving it to yourself. You stop chasing love and start becoming love. That shift, that's everything. Because when you know how to meet your own needs, you stop relying on unpredictable people for predictable feelings. You become someone who doesn't flinch when plans change, someone who doesn't spiral when people disappoint you, someone who doesn't shrink just to be accepted. You become bold, clear, calm. People notice that kind of energy because it's rare. Most people are so lost in trying to be seen, heard, loved, chosen, they forget to choose themselves. But not you. You're learning that being alone isn't the absence of something. It's the presence of everything that matters: clarity, peace, strength, growth. So stop waiting for someone to choose you. Stop living your life like you're half of something. You are whole. You've always been whole. It's just time to remember that. Time to step into that power. Time to stop avoiding solitude and start using it. Because when you're strong enough to survive alone, you stop settling. You stop chasing. You stop needing. And that's when everything you've ever wanted starts finding a new paren. Not because you were desperate for it, but because you became someone who finally believes they deserve it. There's a version of you out there who doesn't flinch when things fall apart. A version who doesn't beg to be understood, doesn't crumble when they get left on read, and doesn't shapeshift just to stay liked. That version of you, it's not some distant dream. It's built, moment by moment, every time you decide to stand up for yourself. Every time you choose to sit with discomfort instead of running to something or someone to numb it. Every time you stop relying on people to rescue you from your own emotions. That version of you is forged in solitude, not isolation, solitude. That's where the strength is born. We've been conditioned to believe that being alone means something's wrong. That if you're not constantly surrounded by friends or in a relationship or keeping up appearances, you're somehow behind. But let me tell you something. There is nothing more powerful than a person who can sit with themselves and not feel empty, who doesn't need noise, distractions, or validation to feel whole. That's not weakness. That's mastery. And most people never get there because they never stop long enough to listen to themselves. The uncomfortable truth is that being alone is where your deepest healing begins. It's where you finally stop distracting yourself from the pain you haven't processed, where you stop trying to perform for love and instead start asking why you've been so afraid to be with yourself. Because the real reason people fear being alone isn't boredom, it's exposure. When there's no one else around, you see yourself clearly. The habits, the patterns, the wounds. But here's the beauty. That awareness is the first step toward change. When you're alone, you begin to notice the stories you've been telling yourself. The ones that say you're not enough unless someone else says you are. The ones that say you have to earn love or prove your worth or stay small to keep the peace. And when you hear those stories clearly, you can finally rewrite them. You can challenge the lies. You can create new beliefs rooted in truth, not fear. That's how you grow, not by staying busy, but by getting honest. And that honesty, it's not always comfortable. Or sometimes it means admitting that you've been settling, that you've been surrounding yourself with noise just to avoid silence. But in that discomfort is power, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You realize you've been giving away your energy, your time, your love to people who didn't value it because deep down you weren't valuing it either. And that changes everything. When you build the capacity to be alone, you stop fearing endings. You stop tolerating half-hearted connections. You raise your standards, not out of ego, but out of clarity. You know what peace feels like now, so you won't accept chaos disguised as companionship. You know how to meet your own needs, so you won't chase after those who barely show up. You know your own worth, so you don't need anyone else to confirm it. That kind of power doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. It makes your love more intentional, your time more protected, your boundaries stronger. And guess what? That's exactly what draws the right people in. When you're grounded in who you are, you become magnetic. Not because you're trying to be, but because confidence is magnetic. Peace is magnetic. Wholeness is magnetic. And those things are born from doing the deep inner work, often alone. So no, you're not behind because you're single. You're not broken because you've lost people. You're not failing because you're walking a path alone right now. You're being prepared. Prepared for a version of yourself that doesn't settle, doesn't chase, and doesn't lose herself just to be loved. That version of you is not built in comfort. It's built in solitude. So if you're there right now, don't run from it. Lean in, trust it, use it, because one day, not long from now, you're going to look back and realize that the season you feared the most, the one where it was just you, your thoughts, your growth, was the season that changed everything. It was the season that made you strong, resilient, whole, and finally free. There's something powerful about realizing that you're not dependent on anyone to keep moving forward, that your peace, your progress, your future, none of it hinges on someone else showing up for you. It's all in your hands. That's not a burden, that's a gift. Because once you understand that you are responsible for building your life, you stop waiting and start acting. You stop chasing people and start chasing purpose. You stop settling for being tolerated and start demanding to be respected, not through your words, but through your choices. That's what strength looks like, and it's built when you learn how to survive alone. The most dangerous thing you can do is tie your self-worth to how someone else treats you. Because people are inconsistent. People are human. And when your identity depends on whether someone stays, whether they choose you, whether they approve, you hand over your power. And every time they shift, you crumble. That's not love. That's a trap. You've got to take that power back. You've got to be so rooted in who you are that no one else's opinion shakes your ground. And the only way to do that is to spend time with yourself. Not lonely, alone. There's a difference. Alone is where you learn what you actually believe, what you truly want, not what your friends want, not what society tells you to want, not what your family thinks you should pursue, just you, your voice, your truth. And that clarity, it doesn't come from being surrounded. It comes from space. It comes from stillness, from moments when there's no one to impress, no one to entertain, no one to lean on but yourself. And the more you learn to trust yourself in those moments, the more confident you become in every area of life. People who can be alone are the most confident people in any room, not because they're loud, not because they need attention, but because they don't need anything from anyone. That kind of presence is rare, and it's built over time through effort, through introspection, through trial and error. It's built when you realize that yes, support is beautiful, but survival is on you. Emotional security is your job. Mental stability is your responsibility. No one can hand it to you. It starts with the small things, making your own decisions without texting 3 people for validation, sitting in silence instead of filling the void with noise, choosing routines that nourish you rather than distract you, being okay with turning down invitations that don't align with your values, not feeling the need to explain yourself every time you say no. That's real strength. It's not flashy. It's quiet. It's in the discipline. It's in the choices. It's in the ability to listen to your gut and follow it, even if no one else understands. You have to get to a place where your peace becomes non-negotiable, where your energy is protected like it's sacred because it is. When you know how to regulate your own emotions, how to comfort yourself, how to celebrate your wins even when no one else notices, you stop chasing external reassurance. You stop showing up just to be seen. You start showing up because it aligns with who you're becoming. And when you start doing that consistently, you become magnetic. Not because you're seeking attention, but because you've mastered something most people never learn: how to be okay by yourself. And here's the thing, when you can be alone and truly enjoy it, you become a better partner, a better friend, a better leader, because you're no longer operating from a place of need. You're whole, and you bring that wholeness into your relationships. That's how you build healthy connections, by showing up full, not empty, by giving, not grasping, by understanding that your life is already complete, and anyone who joins it is just adding to something that's already solid. So if you're in a season where it feels like it's just you, don't fight it. Embrace it. Let it shape you. Let it refine you. Use this time to get clear, to get strong, to get grounded. Because one day you'll look back and realize that being alone didn't break you. It built you. It made you more self-aware, more resilient, more in control. And that version of you, the one who doesn't need but chooses wisely, that version will change your entire life. There's a level of freedom you can only reach once you've learned how to stand alone, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. That kind of freedom changes how you move through the world. You're no longer driven by fear of abandonment or paralyzed by the thought of losing people or constantly adjusting who you are just to be accepted. You've done the hard work of finding home within yourself. And that's where real strength begins. Not in the moments when everything is going well, but in the moments when it's just you, facing life one breath at a time and realizing you're capable of handling it. So many people are terrified of being alone because they associate it with lack of love, lack of support, lack of validation. But what they don't realize is that solitude isn't lack. It's space. Space to think clearly, space to heal, space to discover who you really are without the influence of others. And once you stop running from that space, you begin to realize how powerful it actually is. Because everything you've been looking for, confidence, clarity, peace, it all lives there, right inside that silence you used to avoid. When you finally stop depending on someone else to calm your storms, you start learning how to regulate your own emotions. You begin building tools for real self-support. You realize that you don't need to vent every problem to someone just to feel seen. You can sit with it, process it, and respond instead of react. You learn to pause, to breathe, to reflect before you act. That kind of emotional maturity isn't born from comfort, it's forged through moments when you had no choice but to figure things out on your own. And don't misunderstand, being strong enough to survive alone doesn't mean you reject connection or push people away. It means you don't cling, you don't chase, you don't compromise your values out of desperation to feel loved. You allow relationships into your life, but they don't define your life. You appreciate people, but you don't build your identity around their presence. You share your time, your energy, your heart, but only with those who respect it. That's the difference between being dependent and being empowered. You start to see things clearly. You start to understand what peace actually feels like. It's not constant excitement. It's not being surrounded all the time. It's waking up and not feeling the weight of needing to impress or perform. It's knowing your day won't fall apart if someone cancels plans. It's being content with your own rhythm, your own presence. And that contentment, it changes everything. Because when you're good on your own, you stop tolerating half-hearted relationships, dead-end conversations, and energy-draining environments. That's when you start setting boundaries without guilt. You say no without explanation. You walk away when something doesn't serve your growth. You no longer participate in chaos just to feel included. You no longer settle for crumbs just to avoid an empty table. You know your worth now. And it's not based on how many people text you, how many likes you get, or who's giving you attention. It's based on how you show up for yourself when no one else does. And when the right people come along, and they will, you'll recognize them not by how loudly they enter your life, but by how peacefully they fit into the world you've already created. You won't be looking for someone to save you because you already saved yourself. You won't be hoping someone completes you because you already feel whole. You won't be afraid to lose them because you know you'll be okay either way. That's the kind of strength that creates deep, healthy, lasting connections because it's not rooted in fear, but in choice. So if you're walking alone right now, keep going. Don't let the silence fool you. That quiet space is where your next level is being born. This is where you build discipline, self-respect, patience, and vision. This is where you learn to enjoy your own company so deeply that anything less than peace feels foreign. This is where you prepare yourself for a life that's not built on dependency but on purpose. And when that life unfolds, and it will, you'll look back and realize the solitude didn't break you, it sculpted you into someone strong, into someone whole, into someone free.